Hey everyone, and welcome back to Poddin My Noggin. This is our fifth episode, so I'm pretty excited about that. January flew by pretty quickly, and it's been a sort of eventful and uneventful month so far. So I want to get into that today. So there's two things I want to talk about today on the show. And one is my journey so far. And that is the journey where, you know, I last year realized that what would happen if I poured into myself the same level of energy and effort that I so freely gave to companies, right? And then also the fact that I was packaged out for my position on November 29th, you know, felt like the universe was removing an obstacle and all of that sort of thing. So, you know, I dove in and decided to create this podcast because this is something I've always wanted to do. And I have big dreams for it and all of that, right? So, and I want to interview, I want to talk to people. I want to talk to people about their life stories, their struggles, like what they've gone through, how they've gotten through it, how they have continued to show up, and what lessons have they learned, and what do they want to actually share with the world. And so I'm still going to do that. But let's talk about anybody starting off a podcast to start. Podcasting is popular without any question, but there are, I think the number that I read was like just under 1 million different podcasts, right? Because let's look at it this way. I decided I wanted to have a podcast. I went on the internet and I did a bit of researching. Okay. And I found Spotify for podcasters. So, for podcasters is a great site because it allows you to set up your account. It's pretty easy to use, user friendly. I'm technologically inclined. I can like get around. But yes, very easy to use. And so then I was like, okay, well, now I have to figure out some sort of editing, which I've never been very good at. So included in my Microsoft Office suite, there's this thing called Clipchamp. And so my first podcast was recorded on there, and that was a interesting experience because I had to try and edit things out. And I decided, because with Spotify for podcasters, you can do a video podcast or just an audio podcast. Now, I knew right from the beginning that I wanted to do a video podcast. Um, and then I think I decided that I was just going to do an audio podcast for Spotify for podcasters and then upload the video version of the podcast to YouTube, right? So, there was a method to my madness. I'm like, okay, different arenas, different exposure, different opportunities to potentially monetize down the road. So, super easy. The first podcast that I recorded, I was happy. I got through it, which was a big thing for me. And then I was sick. I was sick all throughout the holidays and had a really terrible flu or cold. Depends on where you're from. They mean the same thing, but they don't actually. It was a head, chest, nose, stuffle, sore throat, all of that sort of thing. So, as it was my first podcast ever, I, um, had purchased a podcasting mic, right? An affordable one on Amazon that is serving its purpose. It's a USB condenser mic. Okay. I know that the go-to that everyone is peddling is the Shure, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's significantly more expensive. So, maybe next year for Christmas, or this year rather for Christmas, I'll buy myself a Shure microphone, right? Because then I'll have had 52 episodes recorded and put out in the world. So I bought this microphone, and because I'm sick, uh, and my throat is sore, and I'm on cold medication, and I'm trying to make sure that I'm hydrated enough during my um, first podcast on New Year's Eve night when everybody was out, doing New Year's Eve things. I was here recording my first podcast. And so one of the things I didn't recognize is you can't really see the mic at this point. And I'm trying something new this week because the mic picks up everything. So it takes away background noise perfectly, but it literally, any noise that I make, it picks up perfectly. So in that first podcast, I had to put that through, and I was really struggling to find something. And in the end, Audacity was the winning software of choice that allowed me to normalize the audios, because here's what was happening. You could hear me swallow on that first podcast. And while I'm trying to be my authentic self and stuff, at the same time, I don't think I want the world to hear me swallow. Um, and because I was sick, I was swallowing a lot, but I didn't realize it until after I went through the editing process and was like, oh, okay. So Audacity was great. I was able to run the audio through that, remove the sound of my swallows, essentially. Then I found another platform called Descript that uses AI to find silences, and then also uses AI to remove specific sounds that you don't want. And you can go on there and it will pull up the script of your whole audio or video, and then you can edit based on the script. So if you said something that you didn't want to say, you can go in and just highlight that particular section and then click, delete, and it'll just delete it from the audio and the video. So that was great. But, that Descript was good, Audacity was good, Clipchamp was good. So my second podcast, as you all know, I was having my first interview guest, which is Jen Lord, aka my Jen Aniston. And I was starting to freak out because I'm like, okay, well, I don't know how I'm going to get Jen Lord or any future guest into a podcast with me, and then also connect them together and edit them as a single file. This felt insurmountable to me. And so, I went to the obvious places first. I was checking out Zoom and the recording function. I was checking out Teams, because Teams was something we used a lot in my last organization. WebEx, any possible sort of Skype, any possible sort of software that they use in business to have meetings and then record was what I was looking into. But then I'm like, okay, this is all fine and dandy, but what happens if Jen, and it was very much Jen at that time because she was the only guest I've had so far. Jen at that time falls off, and then we have to get her back in. It just sounded to me like it was going to be a video editing nightmare. And let me tell you, I struggle with video editing. It's a skill that I'm trying to teach myself and I'm trying to learn, but at the same time, I'm not there yet. And I wasn't there in the beginning of January when we filmed that. So anyway, long story short, I did a lot of research, and I kept seeing this service come up Riverside FM. Seemed interesting. And I'm looking at it, and then I'm like, okay, this looks like it can do what it is I need it to do, but how do I make it do that? So I will tell you this. If you are looking at starting a podcast, and I'll put the link somewhere so you can look it up. I paid for the year service, and I can't even remember what package it was, but I think it allows me 10 video or professional quality exports per month. And so what hours, 10 hours of exports per month. So what I like about Riverside is that, you know, and I used Riverside right at the beginning where that was my first interview. I hadn't like I did a quick mock through with a person who's really close to me just to see how it worked. But like I still didn't know the ins and outs. But anyway, Jen Lord, as you know, if you've watched that video or listened to that podcast or seen the clips on social media, she was able to join, right? So what was great about it is it gives you can create your own studio. So right now I am in, CK Sims's Poddin My Noggin studio. And they give you a link that you can give out to someone, Jen Lord. And so I gave her that link and I said, this is the time. And she showed up. And much like a lot of other professional sort of meeting softwares, it told me when she had arrived and she was in the lobby. I was able to speak to her, obviously. Well, I don't know. It's not actually obviously, but I was able to speak to her before we began recording the show. Just kind of quickly go over what the format was going to be and, a few things. And then I hit record and it gives me a 5-second countdown and then boom, we're good. And we're recording. So on top of that, it has a teleprompter built in and it has a script that you can write in to make any notes or anything like that. So, 42-year-old me, not great at video editing. It sounded promising. And so then, the Jen Lord interview was over. And I had only released one social media clip at that point from my previous podcast because it was really difficult. So here I am. Okay, well, now I want to put the word out that, there's a new podcast. Get some people to be interested, maybe check it out. And I go back in and I start to sort of play around in Riverside. And it's actually quite easy because what happens is when you purchase a Riverside plan, they put you in a Facebook group. And if you search through that Facebook group, it kind of tells everybody's asked every question that you can think of already. So if you just kind of read through it, it's already figured out. Now, one of the cool features about Riverside that I did not know or realize until I played around. So they have AI built in. And what that does is that it will transcribe your entire video. So when I'm done, and I'm filming it right now in my studio for Riverside, when I'm done, if I want it to, it's going to transcribe this entire video. Okay. In addition to that, once I add my ending and beginning, which is just a music and a graphic with Poddin My Noggin, it's going to be great. Now, here's the one piece that I don't love, but I know that they're working on it. So because I've edited it already, I have to download that first and then re-upload to get it to do some of the magic AI stuff that I like. But that one download that I create, that counts to one of my hours as one of the 10 hours of professional quality exports. But that is actually the one that I use to post to YouTube and to Spotify for podcasters. So then obviously, once that's uploaded and then retranscribed, there are the show notes option. So what it will do is it will actually go in and it will give you a summary of what I'm talking about. It'll give point form, and then it'll give a chapters. So and then it's fully, you can edit it. You can go in, read through everything. I had to do that for the Jen Lord one. And for most of mine, because when I say cksims.com, it only thinks it's one M, right? It's not two. So, you read through it really quickly, you change it, and you're good to go. Then you have all your show notes that you can then copy and paste into YouTube, on Spotify, all of that stuff, really easy. It creates a downloadable, I think it's I'm not sure what it is now. It's a downloadable captions document that you can use to upload to YouTube so that you can have closed captioning for your YouTube video. And then my favorite part is the magic AI clips. So this is what really shocked me and just made the whole purchase worth it for me, was when I clicked that button, the AI went through and found the most interesting parts of my podcast that it deemed interesting. Now, we'll get to that in a second. And then made clips for them. So that was great. The podcast with Jen Lord was fantastic. It found some really great clips. I went into each clip. I added my outro for social media. Here's the best part. Because they know it's going on social media, and that social media is 16 by 9 as opposed to 9 by 16. Maybe I'm getting this wrong. 9 by 16 versus one or the other. It took Jen Lord from being on my left or my right and stacked us automatically, so that when I would share that on the social media, it fit within the frame. That really impressed me. I'm easily impressed, but that really impressed me. So Riverside FM, like, it's the, I don't know if it's the best because it's really the only one that I've actually used. That's not true. I've used Descript. I like Riverside better. I just like how easy it makes it to produce a podcast, edit that podcast, and just kind of create a pretty high quality sound and video. So, and what I'm trying today with this particular mic is that I'm moving it a little bit further away from myself to see how well it picks up. Now, hopefully it's not a gong show, and when I listen back, you can barely hear me, but we will see. So, my journey this far is that I found Riverside. I've been using Riverside FM. I'll give you a link somewhere to take a look at it. It's a great program if you want to start a podcast. But my point is that it's actually quite easy to start a podcast. Now, I have been enjoying what I've been doing quite a lot. Is it moving at the pace that I'd love? Absolutely not. I realize that I'm someone who enjoys a bit of instant gratification, and would have liked more listens on my show, or would have liked that it was easier to book guests, right? So I've sent out messaging to, a bunch of people about coming on the show. And, we're not getting the kind of guests that we want to have. And I say we, and it's only me, but, I want real people with real stories, and just sort of down to earth, recognizing that they're successful or whatnot, but that they're still human. Everybody's human. They're not better or less than. So that's been difficult because that's my target niche, right? Those are my people. People who have struggled and survived and have story to tell. Those are my people. So if you're listening and you have a story to tell and you're a real person and you want to uplift, definitely go to cksims.com. So that's cksimms.com and hit the contact page and send me a message and let's get you on the show. All right. And I mental health obviously is my big thing. Feminism, leadership, business, social media, content creation, domestic violence, survivors of all kinds of things. That if you want to come on and you want to talk about your journey and how that could potentially help somebody, those are my people. Okay. So anyway, that's great. I've been doing the podcast and I've been enjoying doing the podcast. And being vulnerable, I wish it did have more listens, but technically I wish the thing that I wish more is that I was successful in getting people who just want to come on and talk, right? That's why I'm doing this, and this is why I will continue to do this, is to connect with really incredibly wonderful and inspiring people who are just like your average Joe or Jen. You're just a person, just like me. Um, Authors, that sort of thing. So that's the biggest sort of like disappointment for me is the lack of genuine guests that I can so far booked. But I mean, this being said, I'm recording my 5th episode. So I also recognize that I need to like take it back a step and give it time, right? Consistency will show people that I'm here to stay and let's go talk to CK, right? So give it time. So one of the things that I did want to talk about today too is that I started out my social media journey. Like I've had social media since, social media was social media, but I started this journey from a different lens and a different perspective in November. I think it was November 13th, actually, if I'm not wrong. And you look at all the different accounts that are on social media, and there was a fly, I apologize. Different accounts that are on social media, and they have these sort of gargantuan claims about how you can earn 10,000 a month, 20,000 a month, all of that sort of thing, or how you can gain this many followers if you do this and you do this. And there's because I was searching and trying to figure out the algorithm and all of that in the beginning, like a lot of people that I follow, some seem very genuine. I've met with one of them, Get Ahead with Nick, very genuine, very down to earth. And I do believe that there's money to be made online. But I think what's interesting is there's this sort of pitch that they're using. And if it's working, it's working. But I'm like, I'm just a very sort of hesitant, cautious human being. And, also just financially, like, we've just talked about this, is that I've been packaged out. I have not, to date, really found a replacement for that particular income stream. So I can't afford at this point to actually, shell out the money to join these programs. The Get Ahead with Nick one, if I had had the amount of money that they were asking for, which was not astronomical, by the way, just an FYI, but it's just enough that it, it it wasn't really in my budget to be able to make sure that I had longevity while I'm looking for, to replace my income streams. He would have been the person to do it with, because we were on a call for an hour and like I didn't get any red flags from him. He just seemed really chill, really down to earth, really wonderful, great human being. And like seemed to really like know what he was talking about. So like in my life at this time, that was an opportunity financially, I would have already paid the man and been involved in this course without a question. Because I, like everybody, want to learn how to make money online. But, maybe if I send him 10 people, he'll be like, you know what, CK, I'm gonna let you come take the program without paying. So if you go to Get Ahead with Nick, tell him that CK Sim sent you. But anyway, so the thing is that I find it a little, not people who are talking about helping you change your life. I do find that there are some people who put out a lot of big claims. It seems like social media is very click me type sort of situation. And I've had to sort of sit back and think a lot about who I am as a person and what am I willing to do to get noticed. And I feel like I don't know if having a super catchy hook with, wait till the end to see sort of situation is who I am as a person, or if it resonates with me, or if that's the type of people that I want on my account to begin with, like who don't have attention spans that can last longer than, say, 5 seconds. And that's the thing, right? You have to have this really on to succeed on TikTok or Instagram. It's all about that hook. Keep the video short and concise, and then make sure that you're adding value in the caption. And it's a method. It's digital marketing on social media. I'm not dogging it at all, 100%, just so anybody listening knows. If it works for you, it works for you. I'm just not sure if that is where I'm at or how I want to attract listeners or people that's going to follow my account. I struggle with this because, and maybe I'm being dumb. I don't know. I'd love to have one of those, people come on here and talk about the hook. Like one of the, like Jasmine Star, for instance, she's one that I follow on Instagram, and she is just like, I do have I just to pull full stop. She's one of the most beautiful women I have ever seen in my life, but she does not carry herself like she's one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my life. Um, she's just absolutely gorgeous, but I think it also how she presents herself, like her personality and how she delivers. And so honestly, I find her absolutely breathtaking to just see show up on my page. And I think in the very first time I saw her, it was that sort of actually stopped me for a second. And then I listened, and then the way she speaks and the way she just sort of gets real and down, like that stuff is inspiring. I'd love to work with Jasmine Stark, not because she's a beautiful woman, because that is just like an outside sort of observation that I made. One of the major observations that I made is that she's extraordinarily intelligent, really smart, really well spoken, presents well, down to earth. And I remember, I think during around Christmas, but before, I had she had posted something and she was talking about how she, was just getting back from somewhere and she was sick and the whole house was sick and all of that stuff. And I had just sort of, it was one of her stories, I think. And I had just said of like, I totally hear you. I'm right there with you right now. Something simple like that. And she, took the time to respond in, DM saying rooting for you. And so that resonated with me because I'm like, okay, here's this successful woman um, who just seems to exude sort of power and success in how she carries herself and all of these things, but also kindness. And then, took the time out for some random person on the internet to say rooting for you. Like, it's those things that will literally take you the extra distance, I think. So I'd love to work with Jasmine Star. I'd love to actually have a conversation on this podcast with Jasmine Star, literally about her success and how she made it happen. And I think maybe I'll send her a message and see if she responds to that one to be a guest on the show. But I would be really interested in talking to Jasmine Star about, you know, the hook and all of that sort of thing, and repurposing content and all of that stuff. And then like to what end, right? And that's where I'm struggling with is to what end do I do this? And is that my brand? Is my brand digital marketing? Do I require digital marketing to market myself? Or do I want things to happen organically in a sense where people are seeing my content and then they're following me? Do I want to go out of my way to say pay for ads or do a bunch of different things like, the hook and the 5 seconds, and you get more plays, and then you make them read the caption, which contributes to the replays. And then hopefully people engage because there's a call to action. And then the algorithm feels like, oh, this is good content. And they're going to push it. And then it goes viral, which I believe the last time I checked, is anything over 10,000 views, likes, or something like that is it's considered a viral video. Um, is that who I am? And is that my brand? And is that how I want to build my audience for what I dream to do for the rest of my life until I retire or and beyond, which is be a public figure, help elevate people, interview wonderful and incredible run of the mill average people who've struggled and succeeded. Does that like that's what I want. That's my brand. Authors, talk about books. It's my podcast is varied, but it falls with under an umbrella. And the umbrella is just wanting to make you feel good, wanting to talk about things to uplift and to educate, and with an emphasis on mental health and how we can reprogram our minds to be better versions of ourselves. So that's where I am. So the journey so far, I think, has been really interesting because I'm not giving up. I'm digging my heels in, even to my own sort of like, when I have those days where I'm feeling a little bit low, or because that instant gratification's not there, right? I have my low days. It's normal. In my interview with Jen Lord, like, we talked about a book and it didn't sell $1 million or a million copies in one day, or week one, and I took it behind. But like, at anytime anybody puts anything out there, they want to see it be successful. But I'm learning lessons as we go, and this is going to take time, and I'm okay with the time, because if I show up consistently for the next however many years, 25 years, then this show's going to be something eventually, right? What it turns into, who knows? I don't know, but it's going to be something. So one of the things today is about just, it's not about even knowing your niche, because that's like such a huge topic on social media for digital content creation and marketing, is knowing your niche. I feel like my niche is good people. So that's pretty broad, right? But also maybe good people who want to be better, or good people who want to consume uplifting content, or good people who want to be inspired or hear interviews and stories from other people who have succeeded. Like, that's my niche, right? But at the same time, I think you also have to know who you are and what you want and how you want to get it. And I'm not sure right now, because this is where I'm struggling, is with this digital marketing sort of thing, if that's how I want to get it. So yeah. So I guess time will tell. I understand it. I get the reasoning. I get that people are successful, but at the same time, it's like I'm trying to train the algorithm right now to start removing some of these people. I've unfollowed a few of them, which when I unfollow people, it does actually make me feel bad. Um, I know that they can tell who unfollowed them, but still at the same time, it's just like, I'm like, you didn't do anything wrong. I'm like, it's just another content that I want to see. Right. Um, so, time will tell. This second thing I wanted to talk about today on my podcast is my new book. Um, the I talked about my new book in my first podcast and how I wrote it in 2008. I've mentioned it in my interview with Jen Lord. So I wanted to sort of talk about my new book today. And it's not new. I say new, but it's newly released. But it's actually quite old, 15 years old. So it's just you've never had the opportunity to purchase it before. And now you do. So got the proof finally, which I say finally, but it took a couple weeks. I'm not an overly patient person, and this is me being just completely transparent with you. I like things to be fast, quick, and efficient. But that's not always how life works. So I have to learn to sort of just go with the pace and lean in and be consistent. That's it, right? So I got the proof in the mail last week, and I can't even tell you how it made me feel. I think there was just this sort of warm sense of accomplishment uh, that I just felt sort of elated. It hasn't sold any copies yet. It might not sell any copies. Um, I've accepted that is just how life works. It may never sell a single copy, and that's fine if it doesn't. Now, what I'm manifesting this year is that this book makes breaks a record for pre-orders from an indie author who's unknown. I'm not saying like break a Harry Potter's pre-order or anything like that. I'm just saying breaks the record for pre-orders for an unknown indie author, which is me. And then results in me becoming a New York Times bestseller. Here's the thing: I'm manifesting it. I believe it's possible without question. Anything is possible. I believe that the book itself can make it. But here's the thing: it can't do it without you, right? Um, and that's where we'll talk about power, where your power lives, in a future podcast because it's something that's really I'm passionate about. The power to make anyone famous, wealthy, a successful public figure. It comes from the people. It doesn't come from the person. The person writes something, does something, stars in something, they put it out there. This does nothing except present the people with an opportunity or an avenue for them to invest in, right? Everybody who's ever been successful in life, every book that's ever been sold or made the New York Times bestseller list has only happened because there were people to buy that book. So while I'm manifesting that the book becomes a New York Times bestseller and also that it breaks a record for unknown indie author for pre-orders, the manifestation has to be that you see the book and you pre-order the book. And without you, there's no me. Without you listening to this show doesn't go anywhere. I can put it out, but if no one ever listens, it's never going to go anywhere, right? Anything I do ever will never go anywhere without the people. And I just want, that's how I always feel, is that the power lives with you to elevate and to imbue somebody with your sense of power. Who are you investing your power in? What are you investing your power in? But like I said, that's a future podcast, because I could talk for hours just on your power and how much you don't realize you possess, and how much collectively we could use our own power to change the entire face of the world. But a different podcast. So got the book, immediately went into, um, okay, I have the book. I love the book. I love the final product. What next? So reached out and got a book trailer created for the book. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore or what, but I always liked the concept of book trailers. So I went and did that. You can take a look at it right now. Perfect. So that's the book trailer. And here is the book. Now, I apologize for anybody that's actually at home listening through podcasts that you can't see it. But if you go to author CK Sims with two M's at Instagram and you click the link tree, you'll be able to see both the trailer and the actual book on pre-order at Barnes and Noble, Amazon and Amazon.ca. And slowly it's starting to appear everywhere. And then it is being released in both ebook and paperback. But right now, I'm going to show you. And once like I said, I apologize to those who are listening through a podcast right now. You can't see what I'm showing, but I'm going to try and explain it for you a little bit. But like, this is the book that I wrote, and it's called Life in Stitches. And what I love about this cover is that it is exactly what I asked for. So the main character of this book is Bonita Smith. She's from a small town called Bay Roberts in Newfoundland. She has only ever dreamed of being a fashion designer and to own the fashion runways. That's been her dream forever. And she goes off to New York City and she does just that. Not so easily. She's a very good student, but she's experiencing life as a young adult woman for the first time. She moves in with a guy. His name is Claude, and they have a lots of fun together. He's gay, so it's a best friendship, is what it turns into be. And it chronicles, it travels across 4 years, the actual book. So you can look, it's 426 pages. And it chronicles 4 years. So it moves fast. Some parts are embellished. And one of the things is, like, I received a question once about there should be more detail. And the way I wrote this book is that Bonita is someone who is hyper focused. So when she's hyper focused on getting through something, there are less details to embellish on. And in this particular case, there are certain times within this book where there are lots of details and lots of like really cool things happening to her that there's much embellishment. And then there's other parts where she's moving through seasons, right? Because you can't chronicle absolutely, 48 months in 426 pages. Um, one of the things, one of the other things I love about this book is that I'm not a writer. I'm a storyteller. The book reads like a movie. That's how things work in my head. When I'm reading a book, there's a movie being filmed in my head of that book in real time. But this cover is, like I said, exactly what I wanted it to be. And it for anybody, like I said, once again, I'm sorry if you're just listening to the podcast. It is a quilt. And each of the patches, you have a B for Bonita. You have wine glasses because Bonita and Claude enjoy their wine. Who doesn't? You have a little sewing machine and a little heart. And then you have a dress form right here behind the C. And the person who designed this also took everything I wanted and made it happen. If you take a look at the Life in Stitches, you are actually going to see photographs in the words of New York City. Because that's where this book plays out, is in New York City. There's a little bit of Newfoundland in there, but it's primarily in New York City. There's a chapter or two dedicated to Los Angeles when they take a trip, but it's in New York City. So it's a quilt, and it's absolutely adorable. I love it. It was designed by Rebecca Carrier, an incredible designer. If you take a look, here's the back part of the cover. This is a lace patch on the quilt. Absolutely fantastic. And then on the inside, the same thing. It's duplex printing. So you got all the colors that I wanted on every page. Right? So there we go. And then it's everything. It's got the weight. It's got the smell of a new book. And I couldn't be happier with it. Because it's been 15 years in the making. Literally 15 years. Let me read you a note from the author, how the book starts, and I just want to read this to you right now. So, a note from the author. 15 years I have sat on this manuscript, immobilized by fear. A few half attempts to put it out and break free of my insecurities, and a quick withdrawal as my anxiety bested me. A lesson learned. If you want to do something, just do it. Don't wait. If it doesn't work, do it again. This book is interlaced with this message. A dream I aspired to in 2008, a belief I live by in 2004. Every chapter you will read has flecks of me dispersed among the characters and the events. As I read it now, it is a story that is cute, fun, adventurous, and leaves me with that feel-good feeling when you watch someone beat the odds. It's a book that sort of reads like a movie. That's how almost everything plays out in my mind: thoughts, worries, and dreams. Thank you for picking up this book and reading this far. If you choose to continue, you can rest assured you will not find the finest work of literary fiction. But this book intends to elicit a feeling. I am a storyteller, not a writer. There is a distinction. I hope this book conveys inspiration above all else, to carve your own path and settle for nothing less than what you want most. When you finish this novel, I hope it gives you a sense of closure that you too can achieve anything you desire. Best, CK. So that is Life in Stitches. A note from the author. There's more to the book. I was inspired by Dan Brown's writing of Angels and Demons, the Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons, and that is how I sort of formatted this book. So it's quick, sort of short chapters, which definitely works from a storytelling perspective because we're moving through 4 years. And then when I picked up this manuscript in November and I decided to like look at this book again and finally put it out, I went back and I read it right from the beginning. And I was reading it and I'm like, oh, nope. 2008 Curtis CK would have written that, or would have said something like that. Because remember, I was in my 20s. I've mentioned before that when I was in my 20s, I wasn't the best person in the world. So I had to do some cleanup to make sure that it represented who I am today. But I left the primary story plots, all of that stuff, to the 27-year-old CK from 2008, who got me here safely, right? He wrote this book. I'm just giving it the light of day, right? So I went in and I did some edits, nothing so super severe, but like made sure that it was something that there was nothing in there that would be said that I wouldn't say now, if that makes sense. Which didn't super change the book. It just changed some of the dialogue and some of the descriptions of events. So, and then when I was finishing writing this book and cleaning it up and getting it ready for publication, I was like, I want to add something special and something more. So I took my time and reworked some of the characters, and probably the most, I added a lot more layering to Benita's climax without giving away any of the devastating things that happened to her. But I wanted to go in and give that more time and space and kind of just really reflection. And then also I wanted to close the loop on a few things. So what I have in my hand is the end result of 15 years, written by a very different CK, but someone who believed in writing the story, and now published by this CK, who also believes in the story, believes in the underdog version, the just don't give up. Just give it everything. Be as persistent as Bonita Smith. And if there is a character that I can be like, you know what? I want that kind of determination. Bonita is that for me, right? Because despite everything, she didn't give up. So, the great thing is I was sharing this with my best friends and my sister this week, and Cindy, my best friend from Newfoundland, said, "I can't wait to read this version." And it's funny because she has been through every single iteration of this novel. And now that it's out there, it's done. The novel's finished. It can't be changed, can't be updated, can't be tweaked. It is finalized. I'm really happy with it. It is available for pre-order on Barnes& and Noble website in the US. In Canada, it's on Amazon.ca. And you can also get it on Amazon.com. The ebook's not showing up yet, but the paperback is. And like I said, if you want to help me fulfill my dreams of breaking a record for most pre-orders for an unknown indie author, you can go pre-order it. And then if you want to help me realize the dream of becoming a New York Times bestseller, you can do the same. It's your power. If you want to watch the trailer, for those of you who are not watching this on YouTube and couldn't see the lovely work that Rebecca Carrier did for this book, and there's so many little extra things in here that I just love and adore about it, because it is a quilt, and I'm a old person who loves quilting. I have made many quilts in my life. And I don't even know if I told that before or not. Maybe that's a new piece of information for you. But yeah, I love quilting. So the fact that it's a quilt, Bonita doesn't make quilts in this book. She makes dresses, really amazing dresses. But for me, I wanted the quilts because our lives are like quilts, just different patches sewn together to make something beautiful. And this is beautiful to me. So if you are listening on Pod My Noggin, and not actually seeing the video of this, you can go to, as I said, author CKSIMMS on Instagram. Make sure to follow. And then click on the link tree, and it'll bring you to not only the actual trailer for the book, but you'll get to see where you can pre-order the book as well. One of the call-outs I will make is the book looks so much better in person than it does on Barnes & Noble or Amazon. Like, I feel like it's very flat, the image, so you don't get to see a lot of the details. Or anyway, in person, it's wonderful. It has a good heft to it. All right. Well, that's my podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening in again. I really appreciate it. If you want to check out my blog, Poddin My Noggin, it's at CKSims, so CKSIMMS.com. You can follow me on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram and Threads at author CK Sims. Facebook, it's author CK Sims, but the O in author is a 0. And if you want to be on the show, there's on my profile on Instagram, you can click apply now and fill out the form, or you can head over to my website, cksims.com, and click on contact and send me a message. And then if you want to sponsor this show, if you want to help me elevate stories and people and lives, and you want to be attached to that, head over to cksims.com and hit the contact button, and let's make it happen. For everyone who has listened so far, who has joined in and been a part of this journey with me, I thank you so much for giving me even a bit of your power and investing your time in me. For anybody who purchases a pre-order of this book, thank you so much for taking any of your hard-earned money, and I do know that it is hard-earned, not just because of current inflation in the market, but just trust me, I know the value of a dollar, and I know that when you choose to invest in somebody, any of that, it's a magical thing, and I appreciate that immensely. So until next time, go out there, live your wildest dreams. Thanks for tuning in.